Mover to seconder to call meeting to order, please. Councillor Manson and Councillor Morton. Therefore, be it resolved that this November 26th, 2024 regular meeting of the council has been called to order at 6:01 p.m. and the quorum has been achieved. Just a note, as we call this to order, we're getting close to the Christmas time, and I noticed if you drive around Calvin in the evening now, there's lots of colorful lights, and it's starting to look really pretty. And I just wanted to give kudos to the staff who are going to organize a float for the Christmas parade this year. So
Stay tuned for information on where to meet us and when to meet us. We're going to do a little nature
What is the date?
theme,
The parade,
December 7th.
December 7th. Thank you.
So we'll be there in Mattawa for the parade with our fire department and with the float from the municipality. Councillors are of course welcome to join. You have to grab onto the back rail and run behind.
It's a fitness test.
And I did learn last year when I was in the fire truck that you're not allowed to throw candies anymore.
The boys walk along the sides.
You walk along the sides and hand them out because we don't want kids running underneath the float. So load up your pockets with candies and hand them out as we go up the river. The first item the second item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. I need a mover and a seconder to approve tonight's agenda. Okay, Councillor Morton, Councillor Manson. Now therefore be it resolved that the Council for the Corporation Municipality of Calvin hereby approves the agenda as circulated. All in favor? Carried. Excuse me. Third item is a declaration of pecuniary or conflict of interest. Are there any declarations?
I have two that I was going to declare. I'll read them to try to keep a procedure. 6.2 Beaver Management. I was going to declare for the reason being company I'm employed with submitted a quotation. And 6.1 and 8.3, I guess. Oh, it's two declarations, I guess, three items. Those are zoning amendments, possible conflict because family member has existing road agreement. And we'll leave it at that.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Councillor Grant. Now those are registered the declarations to council. So the first item on the agenda is 6.1, which is regular business arising from council meetings. This is the zoning amendment. So Councillor Grant, you're going to
We approve previous minutes.
Oh, didn't we do that? Oh, I'm sorry, my mistake. Number 4, the approval of the previous minutes. I need a mover and a seconder. Councillor Manson and Councillor Grant. Now therefore be it resolved that the minutes from the regular council meeting of November the 12th be approved as presented. Any comments? None? All those in favor? That motion is passed. Apologies. The next item is the delegation to council. There are none. And then the next item is 6.1, which is the zoning amendment. And just to be noted that Councillor Grant is leaving the council floor. So, this is a declaration of a public hearing. So please take notice that the Council of the Corporation and Municipality of Calvin is holding a public hearing tonight on November the 26th, 2024 to consider a proposed zoning bylaw amendment under section 34 of the Planning Act. The proposed zoning bylaw amendment would change the language in the zoning bylaw 2022-19 section 4.11.2.1 by removing the language and the example on page 93. The zoning amendment will discontinue allowing residential development on seasonal roads with the use of road agreements. The zoning amendment will still allow current road use agreements to remain, however, new ones will not be permitted. Camps will remain the permitted use for seasonal roads. So we're just gonna go to a planning report. If I can get our public works supervisor. Ida, all right.
We just discussed the proposal for the planning, the zoning amendment. The provincial, in a planning report, we always have to refer to the provincial policy statement as per section 3.5 of the Planning Act. In October, the planning policy statement is currently reviewed and just released. We also have to ensure that we match our official plan and our zoning bylaw. And those are the mechanisms that we use to determine whether or not we comply with all the other applicable bylaws and amendments and official plan before we do a zoning amendment. The provincial planning statement is, the planning statement provides policy direction on matters of provincial interest related to land use planning and development. As a key part of Ontario's policy leading planning system, the provincial planning statement sets the policy foundation for regulating the development and use of land province-wide, helping achieve the provincial goal of meeting the needs of fast-growing province while enhancing the quality of life for all Ontarians. In respect of the exercise of any authority that affects a planning matter, Section 3 of the Planning Act requires that decisions affecting planning matters shall be consistent with policy statements issued under the Act. 2.6 of the provincial planning statement refers to rural lands, and the development that can be sustained by rural service levels should be promoted, and development shall be appropriate to the infrastructure which is planned or available, and avoid the need for uneconomical expansion of the infrastructure. And this zoning amendment would coincide with that statement. Territory without municipal organization. I know currently we do allow some residents of Louder Township to cross over municipal lands with possibility of road use agreements. The development of territory without municipal organization shall be appropriate to the infrastructure which is planned or available, and avoid the unjustified and or uneconomical expansion of infrastructure. In areas to and surrounding municipalities, only development that is related to the sustainable management or use of resources and resource-based recreational uses, including recreational dwellings, not intended as permanent residences, shall be permitted. Other uses may only be permitted if the necessary infrastructure and public service facilities are planned or available to support the development and are financially viable over their life cycle, and has been determined that the impacts of development will not place undue strain on the public service facilities and infrastructure provided by adjacent municipalities, regions, and or the province. And the proposed zoning amendment would meet that portion of the PPS, the provincial planning station. Sorry for the acronym. 3.1 general policies for infrastructure and public service facilities. More consideration is given to developing new infrastructure and public service facilities. The use of existing infrastructure and public service facilities should be optimized, and opportunities for adaptive reuse should be considered wherever feasible. Infrastructure and public service facilities should be strategically located to support effective and efficient delivery of emergency management services and to ensure the protection of public health and safety in accordance with the policies. And the proposed zoning amendment will ensure that residential development will occur on year-round maintained roads to allow optimization of existing infrastructure to support effective and efficient emergency management services. Currently, some road maintenance agreements have been issued for the purpose of residential development, and the agreements state that there is a limitation of emergency services which jeopardizes the protection of public health and safety and doesn't coincide with the PPS. The East Nipissing official plan. The official plan is a vision of how we would like our region developed, since it is coincided with ourselves, Madawan and Papadon Cameron. So it's a general statement on how we would like to see our land plan and what we see in the future in 30 years. 2.2 of the official plan, growth and development concept. The intent of the plan is to maintain the rural character of the planning area with low density residential development, will prevail intermixed with resource-based activities, resource-based recreational uses and other land uses. Development is intended to occur on large lots of a minimum of 0.8 hectares with large frontages of 30 meters. The focus of development will be infill on vacant lots of record in areas serviced by existing roads and municipal services. The planning area will continue to depend on the public service facilities in North Bay and Mattawa. Emergency and protective services will continue to be delivered individually and on a cost share basis. Development will continue to be directed to the existing network of roads whose service levels, life cycle maintenance, and reconstruction is governed by municipal asset management plans. I also listed all the lot access criteria in the official plan. I'd like to point out that frontage on a provincial highway would be subject to the approval of the MTO. And the MTO never moves on that subject. If a lot of record is sitting on a Highway 630 and then on another corner lot that just was severed recently, MTO will not even entertain that there's entrance provided on the MTO side. It must come up from a township road. Frontage on municipally unopened road allowances may be permitted for infill development only when the road meets appropriate maintenance standards, right-of-way width, traveled surface width, height clearances, and slope required for regular and emergency vehicle use, and only where the abutting property owner has entered into a maintenance agreement under Section 35 of the Municipal Act. That says to me that the road maintenance agreements are issued for the purpose of bringing that road to that standard. Frontage on a private road servicing a condominium or plans a subdivision are allowed, as they're called an improved public road, and may meet the appropriate construction and maintenance standards. Frontage may be exempted for land uses for infrequent or private access for farm fields, hunt camps, fish camps, public utilities, communication facilities, and passive recreational use. Landlocked access for new development shall not be permitted. The proposed zoning amendment will ensure that residential development, once again, will occur on municipally year-round maintained roads. In accordance with the official plan, road maintenance agreements are subject to be issued when the road met the appropriate maintenance standard, right-of-way width, traveled surface width, etc. The intent of the road maintenance agreement within the official plan is to permit travel over a road for the purpose of developing the road to the standard described in the official plan. It was never intended to be issued to permit residential development on a road that is not year-round maintained or not brought to a maintenance standard that is indicated in the official plan, or to allow residential development to occur where emergency services are not provided. Furthermore, with the official plan, 5.3.2.1, in addition to the policies that we just described in section 2.6, primary access for development in the planning area will be via the existing road network. Municipalities are authorized to classify roads and restrict or control access for any development or a change of land use on the basis of the classification, which is identified in our bylaw 2018-04, sorry, or 2016-020. The proposed zoning amendment coincides with the classification of roads provided in the official plan, and the zoning amendment will further control access for any development or for any change of land use. Also in the official plan, land division, part law controls and deeming. Lots shall have a frontage on a direct access to a year-round maintained public road, except for islands or water access only lots, and where applicable to a provincial highway or is otherwise provided. And the proposed amendment would be in front or would align with the official plan, and that lot shall have frontage. The zoning bylaw is the bylaw which reflects the official plan, and that's where the laws come in. The official plan is a vision, and the zoning bylaw is a law. I'm sorry if I'm kind of downgrading the conversation. I'm not aware of how much the council is aware of planning lingo. Frontage on a public street or public road. No person shall erect any building or structure or use any land in any zone unless the lot upon which such building or structure is to be erected or the land to be used has access to and meets the minimum lot frontage on a street. And the definition of a street in the zoning bylaw means an improved public throughway, lane, road, or highway affording principal means of access or entrance to abutting properties, and which has been assumed and is maintained year-round by a public authority. There are, however, exceptions in the zoning bylaw that permits for, that could be on an existing private road with existing easements and for permitted use located in a registered condominium located on an internal private road. So typically, if somebody wants to develop a subdivision or a condominium, the developer would come in, would make a subdivision agreement with them. They would bring the road up to standard before the municipality would assume the road. As we don't want the developer to run off with all the money and leave the municipality holding the bag. For any permitted use on an island, infill on a private road, for a camp, for a farmer's field, for a resource related use on a located crown land, communication facilities, public utilities, wayside pits or quarries, water access, and for passive outdoor recreational use. The portion we're trying to remove here this evening is 411.2.1. And that is the use of road maintenance agreements and road use agreements on lands that are not, on streets that are not year-round maintained. There is the clause in addition to 411.1 where road maintenance agreements that exist between the municipality and one or more landlord owner is registered on title. Frontage on that road, private unassumed road, it's basically grandfathered in with the zoning bylaw. We would not revoke existing road use agreements. There's also the exception for access where there's easements registered on title. Part of the planning process is that we circulate the zoning amendment to North Bay Meadow Conservation, the MTO for comment, in-house, and to our public. I do have comments from the public. I would like to start with Cindy Grant. She emailed me with opposition, and a part of the process is that we read it out loud to council to be heard in a public setting. Good morning, Ann. I am objecting to the removal of zoning bylaw amendment 411.2.1 due to the lack of clarity on what will replace this bylaw and how this will affect LSR property, future development, access, use of property, and property value. Please share this with the individual councillors and make this available as a comment at the public meeting. I'm skipping over your little part, aren't I?
Yeah,
Mr.
that's
Mayor?
fine. You go right ahead.
Okay.
Thank you. You've done very well so far, and you put it in layman language, which is great.
Okay. I also received comment from Mr. Bridgen. I'm opposed to the proposed zoning amendment that would remove section 411.2.1 of bylaw 2022-19 in its entirety, as well as the example on page 93 referring to the road use agreement. This change could potentially limit my ability to further expand my farm business located on Stewart's Road and would likely devaluate the current investment I have made into my property. This could also impact other properties that I own within the township that currently do not have frontage on a maintained road, specifically on Daventry. Per the East Nipissing official plan as amended in 2022, building permits for development, except for certain exceptions, are only granted on a road or where a road maintenance agreement exists. This guidance provided clarity for me and others investing within the township, as we could be assured that property without frontage on a road could receive a building permit if the property owner obtained a road use agreement. In fact, I have previously received a road use agreement for another property, and council resolved in 2023 that staff entered into the agreement with me for summer road maintenance on Stewart's Road. But that agreement was not finalized despite my repeated efforts. In February, this practice of issuing road use agreements was discontinued until staff could recommend guidelines and policies which would establish formal processes and conditions to consider such requests. Instead, in October, a series of recommendations were made to council, one of which is subject to the zoning amendment. By no longer allowing road use agreements and removing section 411.2.1 of the zoning bylaw, I appear to have no legal way to build on my property on Stewart's Road. This property is intended to farm, and I have already built a farm building pursuant to all the existing planning requirements in Calvin Township. If no other solution can be found for Stewart's Road, I question how am I supposed to continue to grow my farm there, knowing I can't occupy the premise seasonally, that I can't build any further, and that I likely can't receive emergency services, that I legally can't maintain my only access to the property. I have begun building my business here in good faith, expecting that I would be able to continue to receive the same level of consideration, and these changes could shake the confidence of current property owners and those looking to move into Calvin in the future. Agriculture in Nipissing is an important economic driver, generating 19 million in farm cash receipts and supporting over 550 jobs across the agri-food sector in Ontario. The East Nipissing official plan recognizes the importance of agriculture to the local economy by protecting agricultural activities and providing for their expansion. While I am hopeful that we can come to a resolution on Stewart's Road, I need to voice my opposition to the zoning amendment to try to protect my ability to continue to farm on my land. And any further information is required, or anyone would like to contact me in regards to this matter, please feel free to reach out to me. We are always happy to work with the township.
That's the end of the comments.
That's the end of our comments from our public, and we have not received any oral submissions unless Mr. Brown is here for the purpose.
Are you, no? Okay. Then,
We do have other comments though internally.
Yes.
There are other comments internal.
I'm going right off grid here.
oh, all right, well
I'm
then.
going through this whole planning report. By the time we get to the bylaw, we'll be done.
Just for clarity, when we get to the item of the bylaws, when we'll get into questions about these comments, is that
Yeah.
correct?
Correct.
So right now, we're just listening to the comments and absorbing what those people have to say and what they feel the impact is, correct?
Yes,
So I'll let you-
Mr. Bridgen is with us on the, on our Teams meeting. If we have any questions to also address to him from the council. And he is able to speak to this matter as well if he feels the need to.
Okay,
Okay?
I'll let you carry on.
I also received comment from the chief building official. I have read the planning report prepared by Ankar, Public Works Supervisor, regarding road maintenance agreements. I concur with the report and would add that currently there is confusion about when and what a building permit can be issued for when dealing with unmaintained roads. Our current zoning bylaw is vague and contradictory, and this would help to eliminate any confusion. I received a report from Chief LaBreche from the fire department. I'm in agreement with the zoning bylaw. Any amendments that would cease the current practice of issuing road use agreements when a dwelling is built, that there will be an expectation of fire services. The fire department will make every effort to respond to all emergencies, but this is not typically the case with unassumed roads, unopened road allowances, narrowing trespass roads. For example, Stewart's Road to pass on the bridge during any season, or Latimer Lane due to its width throughout the winter months. We cannot compromise the fire apparatuses. The Corporation of the Municipality of Calvin has recently purchased a UTV, but this vehicle is not equipped to respond to structural firefighting, as the equipment required supersedes the capability of the vehicle, and I will not risk the health and safety of the firefighters. The primary use of the UTV is for remote rescue or firefighters. You all heard my comments at our last meeting, except for Councillor Martin, but you can always YouTube it. I do have one, I had several comments from different legal departments, and I'll quote what I can at this point. From Russell Christie. While it should seem obvious that a private individual has no right to carry out works on public property owned by a municipality, one of the main reasons for this is potential future liability. If works are carried out by a private individual without authority and monitoring by the municipality, then accidents could occur which cause not only property damage, but also personal injury. This would likely result in both the private property owner and the municipality being sued. And if it was shown that the municipality knew that work was being done by private individuals, it did not stop and did not stop that from happening, then likely the municipality would be considered negligent and responsible. This, of course, would also affect your insurance deductible, as well as increase your premiums, even apart from the liability that is issue is the concern for public safety. And the municipality has a responsibility to ensure public safety. For the reasons stated above, your municipality should stay vigilant, ensuring that private individuals do not work on property that is used by the public and owned by the municipality. We also had comment from our engineer, our township road engineer, regarding Stewart's Bridge and the capacity. And any development done on other side of the bridge or any concrete trucking delivery would object from delivering, having to cross a bridge while overloaded. Most times a supply company would ask the owner to provide a letter of exemption from the municipality, which will not happen. Keeping in mind a load of gravel on a triaxle truck is 22 ton plus the truck weight, these vehicles are well over the 20 ton and 18 ton limits. Also, a fire truck may not be able to pass fully loaded with water, therefore emergency services may not be provided with the current bridge in place. And that is the comments from our public, our lawyer, as well as different departments. My recommendation to council is that they pass the zoning amendment. We do have bylaw 2017-7015 in place, which describes the standard of a road being brought up to a standard where a road use maintenance agreement would be used in section 5 of that bylaw. And that road use agreement would allow the contractor to be able to perform work on public lands in order to get that road up to a standard that we are able to assume it. There are other options such as easements, right-of-ways that are legally registered to the title, which stays with the land for its perpetuity. Currently, what we're doing is non-transferable, and I don't think it's a benefit to the residents that currently hold the road use agreements either. I believe that if we would do it properly through easement or right-of-ways, that it gets registered to the title, that it's more secure for a clean title for the sale of the land. We are currently looking at what it would look like to take over Stewart's Road up to the residential dwelling at the end of it. We are currently also looking at Latimer's Lane up to where it is residentially developed. However, that is still a conversation to have with council in the new year. And I guess that's all I have to say about it.
Well, thank you very much. Very comprehensive report. Well,
Yes.
it's a long talk.
But Mr. Bridgen does have opportunity if he wishes to speak at this moment.
Mr. Bridgen, do you wish to speak?
Yeah, I'd just like to say that my opposition to this is not specifically because I think road maintenance agreements are good ideas. It's just we don't have another plan in place at this time to continue development. So without something else in place, I think at this time we should review what we have, maybe discuss the idea of access allowances and things like that and what that looks like, and put a bylaw together at the same time as removing this one. Because right now, as soon as this bylaw is gone, all of my investments that I've made into the community are null and void. So I just don't want to see it go away 100%. I'd like to see a shift in the way we do things. And I understand that's what you're trying to do, but I feel that it puts me in a very bad position, and it puts all the other LSR properties in a bad position. And then there's other properties in the township that haven't even been examined yet that it will put them in a position as well. So there's just not enough information here. Just stop all development in the township on those properties, I believe would not be good for the community or good for the township. That's pretty much all I have to say.
Mondo?
Mr. Bridget and I have been corresponding back and forth, that we have, and, as he just stated, what is the complete vision before the zoning amendment may occur?
Okay, he said there is no alternative. Didn't you say that there is a
Well,
road use agreement that's available for an infill? So, and anybody who has existing property can get a right of.
Exactly, so like it's, some properties here would have to use the unopened road allowance, not even the seasonal roads.
Right,
So they could get easements, they could get right of ways, and like I said, it does make a very clean title.
can they do that right now? Is that going to be available with, if this bylaw passed?
Our current road use agreements are non-transferable in the documentation.
Right,
So currently it only exists with the current landowner, so it belongs to a person. It doesn't quite belong with the land. With right of ways and easements, you are able to make agreements with the township. You're able to put in place like that has to still remain as an open public entity. The limitations of bringing it up to what standard we would require. For instance, Mr. Bridgen's very concerned about his farming. And the current zoning bylaw still does permit him to have access to his farmlands off of unopened road allowances. That is an exception to that allowance. It's just not for the provision of residential development.
okay, I see Mr. Bridgen just has a second question.
Yeah, the unfortunate part is if we eliminate the bylaw, there is no more building allowed, period. Because you cannot obtain a building permit unless you have frontage on a maintained road. So even if we're granted access, that does not ensure that we have a maintained road. The only way to ensure that we have a maintained road is to maintain it ourselves through a road maintenance agreement. And that is in the bylaw. So like I've been working on my property for the last 2 years or so, and we're building a building, and that building was going to be a seasonal building, which I was denied the permit for that seasonal building because I did not have the road maintenance agreement at the time. Which I come to find out that in our planning that there is provisions for seasonal buildings on seasonal roads, which I have access to a seasonal road, but that's beside the point. So my intent was to get the road maintenance agreement in order to make my building so I could stay on the property for farming use. Now, camps are not allowed. I'm not allowed to stay in my camp for farming use. It's only for recreational use. And in order to work on my farm and prosper on my farm, I need to stay there. I can't come back and forth every day. So, we've invested in another 200 acres of land this year. And we're trying to ramp up production, but without being able to get down the road and having services and things like that and having our buildings, it's really inhibited us. So this year was supposed to be a good year. It did not turn out very well because we weren't able to do what we needed to do without our road maintenance agreement in place. That's pretty much my thought on that.
And I'll just, Anne, I'll put you on the spot again and ask you to respond if you would.
No, I think, like I said, what I need to say to the council, and like I said, the conversation with Mr. Bridgen is still open and it's still ongoing.
Okay?
Can I say one more thing? Sorry.
If the town clerk, go ahead.
I am willing to work with the township, and we are going to try to work something out for this specific issue, but I'm afraid in the future for any other people that have invested in the township without a plan going forward, how to develop their lands. They will still need access no matter what, even if you grant it to them. If we don't have road maintenance agreements or agreements in place, they're going to do it without your permission, or they're going to access their land. You've said that they have a right to access their land, but there's no provision to do that. Just be very careful. I don't think everything's put together yet. I don't disagree with what you guys are doing. I just don't think it's quite complete. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bridgen. Are there any other comments? I'll ask council to hold their questions until we get to the next the section of the bylaw where we're actually discussing the bylaw. But any section questions further from the audience or Ann? Nothing? All right, thank you very much. It's a lot to think about. This will conclude the public hearing for the proposed zoning amendment. To be notified of a final decision of the approval authority, please be sure that you've filled out an attendance sheet. Now, there is no one here in attendance, but anyone who's got a written will automatically be on that list.
On your correct.
All right. So,
Mover second is Lewis. To accept it.
yeah. So let's, I need a mover and a seconder to get back to this. 6.1, I need a mover and a seconder to accept this report. Councillor Manson and Councillor Morton. Now therefore be it resolved that the Council for the Corporation and Municipality of Calvin has held a public consultation hearing tonight on November 26th, 2024, and where and when it received all written and oral submissions related to the consideration of a proposed zoning bylaw amendment under Section 24 of the Planning Act, amendments related to road maintenance agreements. All those in favor of accepting the report? All right, and that is carried unanimously. Thank you very much for your submission and attendance, Mr. Bridgen. And we will be discussing it in greater details later on in the meeting. So yeah,
Did you guys want me to stay around for questions later on in the meeting?
I know, because we can't get you to get into the questions if it's not a delegation. So
Okay, thank you. You guys have a good night.
thank you very much. Good night, Mr. Bridgen.
Good night.
Next item on the agenda is the Beaver Management Services request for quotation results. I need a mover and a seconder. Councillor Morton, Councillor Manson. I did see that Councillor Latimer put his hand up, but I was just too slow to record it. Sorry. Now therefore be it resolved, the Council for the Corporation and Municipality of Calvin received the results of the request for quotation 2024-10 Beaver Management Services and authorized staff to enter into a fee for services agreement with Lewis Skelling. That was the lowest of the bids. All those in favor? So that motion is carried. Thank you very much. Consent agenda, items for information purposes.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
We can ask Councillor Grant to come in back.
Councillor Grant, would you wish to come back and join us? Thank you.
Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. Now therefore be resolved. Oh, I need a mover and a seconder. Okay. Councillor Latimer, thank you. Councillor Morton and Councillor Latimer. Now therefore be resolved that the Council for the Corporation and Municipality of Calvin received the consent agenda as presented. Are there any items that anyone on council wishes to move forward? Yes, Councillor Morton.
The our item on the Bonfield Library, I don't know if we need to discuss it, but I think it would be helpful for the community if it was posted on our website.
Actually, they went one step further. I guess you were just away when they did that. They sent this to everybody in the township.
Thank you.
So everyone received a copy.
Everyone received it. It's on our Facebook and on our website. And I would like to mention that the Bonfield Library actually created it. So it's a beautiful.
Excellent. Thank you.
Are there any other things to be brought forward? Yes?
I don't want to fully bring it forward, but I just wanted to comment on the 7.7, that ONSAT. So the Ontario government partnering with Starlink for internet coming out in spring next year.
Right.
That's very good for rural people. When I moved 2 years ago, I had a very poor connection, and now I have Starlink, and it's seamless for Zoom meetings. I just wanted to mention that. It's useful.
In there? Anything else? I would like to bring one item forward for the next meeting, and that's the motion by Larder Lake, which is to share the proceeds of certain government programs. And especially since we need to have more money for roads development in the township. And that's what that Lauder Lake resolution is about. So if we could bring that forward to the next meeting, then everyone will have a chance to review it. Any others? Nothing? So all in favor of accepting the consent agenda? That motion is carried. Thank you. Administrative matters. Item 8.1, Unifor 103 30th Annual Toy Drive and Request for Funds. I just need a mover and a seconder to discuss the, okay, Councillor Morton and Councillor Manson. Discussion. They're looking for a donation. It's as it says in the agenda. Councillor Morton, you were mover. Any discussion?
And I just moved it to make it discussable.
Right? So no discussion? No.
Not for me.
Okay. Councillor Manson.
I don't think I have anything to say. I think it's a good idea. It's not sure amounts or so I don't really have any guidance.
Councillor Grant.
I'll be consistent in my opinions on donations, and I think that it's a fantastic cause, and applaud them for running the charity, the program. You know, to highlight just gifts, Christmas gifts and things, and I think it's fantastic. I don't feel it's my role as a councillor to force donations with tax dollars to charities. It's something that as a councillor, I'd like to avoid, in the sense that people pay taxes and they're forced to pay those taxes. And we should use it for infrastructure and core services. But it doesn't discount what they're trying to do. I think it's fantastic, but that is where I stand. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Grant, I'm in agreement with you. It should not be forced on taxpayers, but I would put the challenge out to all of council to make a personal donation to this fund. I'm willing to do that myself, as we've talked about in previous items, and I understand staff has also put some money together to.
Yeah, Local 103 is approaching all the union members for donations, and they are to drop a box off to the office so that general public can also make donations. So we haven't received that yet, though, Trish. No.
Our bylaw for making donations is fairly clear, and it talks about presenting the direct benefit to the residents of the municipality. This is sort of a little bit of a vague area because it is North Bay and surrounding area, and it's the children, and it's a good cause. It's providing Christmas presents for kids in Christmas. So we'll vote on it. But my recommendation would be that we say no, but that everyone here be willing to make a small donation personally instead of from the township. Go
Yeah, I
ahead.
just wanted to add, just so I can make sure I add it in, you know, I'm willing and I will make a donation. I'd like to be notified when the box is available
And,
as a councillor.
all right,
And I'd also like to encourage the public to support this. I do agree with the premise.
any other comments? None?
I think, yeah, I have a comment, that this will be the first of a number of requests for donations this time of year. The next one will be a food bank, and last year I'm not quite sure how we handled that one, but I agree that it should be, it's on a personal basis, not, you know, it's not our responsibility as municipality to be doling out to every request, and as, you know, personal as it may touch us, it should be on a personal level.
All right. Then the way the resolution is written up, if I may, I will just call it for a vote. Now therefore be it resolved that the Council of the Corporation and Municipality of Calvin received the consent, that the municipality of Calvin received and discussed the request for cash donations to Unifor 103 30th Annual Toy Drive, and will be not making a donation at this point in time. All those in favor? So that is carried unanimously. The next item on the agenda is the fire chief report. I regret to inform council and staff that the fire chief has taken ill and could not be here tonight. So you have the report in the agenda. So I need a mover and a seconder to accept the report. Councillor Morrison, Councillor Manson. Now therefore be it resolved. Oh, are there any questions about the report? There's no one here to answer them, so I guess we can't.
If you have any questions, I can forward them on if you have any.
It should be noted in the report that they are running a breakfast on December the 14th. And just so that everyone is aware that there is a pancake breakfast here at the municipality again on December the 14th, as the fire chief probably would have addressed in her report. So all are welcome to attend.
Yeah, I haven't seen any marketing information for us to be able to market and promote it. So.
No. All right, so all those in favor of accepting the report? That is carried unanimously. The next item on the agenda is the rest of the road use agreement. So I guess a mover and a seconder to go into discussion. Mover and a seconder, Councillor Manson, Councillor Morton. Should I read this first and then? Yeah. Whereas the Council for the Corporation and Municipality of Calvin has passed a resolution of council to discontinue the practice of receiving requests for and issuing road use or maintenance agreements, Resolution 2024-77. Whereas the Council of the Corporation and Municipality of Calvin requests staff to provide guidelines and policies for a transparent and formal process. And whereas the Council for the Corporation and Municipality of Calvin instructed staff to prepare an amendment to the zoning bylaw to remove the language for issuing new and future road use maintenance agreements with the zoning bylaw by resolution 2024-376. Now therefore be resolved that the Council for the Municipality of Calvin will enact bylaw 2024-67, being a bylaw to amend bylaw 2022-19 to remove section 4.11.2.1 and the example on page 93. So, discussion. Okay, Councillor Manson.
So, very thorough, comprehensive report. And I know now I've been through it twice. It's still a fair amount to digest because my vocation is different. So, terminology, easements, right of ways, road allowance, public road, unassumed road, private road. And I think there was even a couple more road designations. I'm not familiar with a lot of those distinctions. And as we're passing some I'll say reasonably significant change in policy that can affect people's ability to develop, I would like to make sure I understand the big picture. And I think it makes a lot of sense. I think it makes a tremendous amount of sense to allow and encourage building where there's appropriate services. It's the way to go. But this community was built a long time ago, and there's people that are not, people that have properties, and maybe they have some idea of doing that development of their property that they haven't just kind of been able to dig into till now. So I do want to have a chance to maybe look at this a little bit more, maybe have a chat and discuss a little further to bring myself better up to speed, to take in and digest some of the comments from the public consultation. They made some good points there that are reasonable to take some time for me to digest. So what I'm asking, if I don't have a specific question because my learning curve, I need more than a few questions to feel comfortable about this. So my suggestion is to push this to a future meeting to allow a little bit more time to digest and see what that complete vision, that bigger picture is, and how other residents who may be on the cusp of either wanting to build, may be able to build, maybe not, but with a little bit of confusion. As the CBO said, there is confusion out there about, in some cases, what can be built where. I would just like a little bit more time, and I would ask to defer it to the next meeting. I don't have a specific question for this.
So actually what you're doing is making a motion to defer at this point. in time.
That's what I was doing.
Yes,
And it is understandable, because honestly, this is how much you have to read to understand planning. With the official plan, the zoning bylaw, the planning act, the new planning policy statements, et cetera. It is a lot to suck in.
okay, we'll hang on to your motion to defer and we'll put that in. But before we even get that far, are there any other questions? Councillor Latimer, Councillor Morton? Yeah, Councillor Morton.
Well, I'm more inclined to end on their,
Hang on, Councillor Latimer. Just Councillor Morton is speaking and then I'll bring you in after that. Go ahead.
we don't necessarily require the expertise ourselves. We depend on the people we hire to make those investigations. And I'm not a criminal investigator of murders that we bring in the OPP. I'm not a road person or a planning person. That's why we have you. We have a rules person. You have a lawyer. We have an engineer. You've been consulted with all of those people. If there's something specific that we need to re-examine through those expert people, I can see us deferring it. But if it's just because we don't understand what's going on, we could defer it for 6 months and still not understand the jargon that's in that book. And I'm more comfortable listening to the advice of our experts and staff that have investigated this.
Thank you, Councillor Morton. Councillor Latimer, you wanted to have a question or a comment?
I have a comment. I say well-documented, well-written justification for the resolution. I don't think I can understand the need to. I read it, some of it I understood, but I don't think waiting is going to change the case is being put forward by the experts, by Anne and Donna, lawyers, civil engineer, fire chief, building inspector, public works super. I think we need to move forward with the resolution and close this piece off, and then look for solutions to rectify the issues that affect a few individuals. Our role as council, mayor and council, is to protect the municipality and all the taxpayers. And I think by passing this resolution, it will do that. But I also think that in fairness, we need to, as a council, look at ways to rectify some of the problems that have been made by errors in the past, bad decisions by individuals and perhaps by municipality as well. So I'm in favor of moving forward. Again, I think I mentioned before, it's a matter of trust that we're going to do the right thing. And but we do need to we do need to move forward with this resolution and put it behind us.
Thank you, Councilor Latimer. Then I have a question. And I'll direct this directly to you. And there's just a couple of things that just popped into my mind as you were speaking, and you gave a very clear common language report. Thank you for that. It said that we can do a road use agreement for an infill. So will we still be able to do a road use agreement for an infill?
Yes, so we do already have a bylaw that allows for infill development, which would be like a shared driveway on property, which is an easement.
So this, taking away this bylaw does not take away
The ability
to
to act.
create, so we're not saying all road use agreements are gone because we can still do an infill road
Right.
use agreement. Is that correct?
Right, through like, it would be legally documented and it's for the purpose of development, actually.
So if somebody wants to build a house or 2 or 3 or 4 houses, and they're going to build the road up to standards, they can get a road use agreement to build the road up to standards. Is that correct?
Correct.
So that was one of the concerns that I heard, is that if somebody wants to develop their property, they have no method of doing that. But they can still get a road use agreement for an infill to develop the property. Is that my
Exactly.
understanding?
Road use agreement would also be okay through this bylaw. Like for instance, Mr. Bridgen wanting to access his properties that are closer to Daventry through an unopened road allowance. Unopened road allowance is where trying to get Mr. Manson. Appreciate. The Crown Surveyor did 100-acre parcels, and within the 200-acre parcels, there are unopened road allowances, which are allowed to be traveled by the public. However, they're not allowed to be maintained, no trees are to be removed, etc. So in saying that, that's through the municipal act. Those are not even really roads, they're just public property that we own that gives us the advantage in the future. If someone wants to develop their 100-acre parcel, there's already public land there to develop a road on to create development within those 100-acre parcels. So those are typically used for snowmobiling, four-wheeling, and they're not allowed to be shut off to the public. So there is opportunity to use unopened road allowances for easement into property. Currently, there is a road use agreement, which I believe the property that Mr. Bridgen was referring to, that's across the road from Stewart's Road, which is like a perfect example where an easement would work. It's just because the property doesn't touch the road is deviated from the road allowance, and the property doesn't touch, so they need a way to gain access to the property. So typically they're using it as a driveway. And that is a perfect example of a road use agreement. And like I said, it doesn't discourage development. The farms are still allowed to have the ability to have access to their lands. It does stifle residential development in the aspect that they would be asked to bring the road up to a standard that is accessible for the municipality to maintain, as well as to provide emergency services. And that is part of the official plan from the province.
Okay, thank you for that answer. Very concise. If I, well, let's not. Let's say if I have somebody that I know that buys a 100-acre lot, and there is frontage on the front of the 100-acre lot, and they want to build 5 houses on that property. They have to build some way for the 5 houses to be get land separation agreements so that they can build houses. So what kind of road, if there was access to those 5 lots, that would be an easement, a private road?
I don't want to get into it deeper because now you're doing a plan of subdivision. Because you're only permitted to do 3 on one parcel.
Right.
3 severances when retained. If you go into a plan of subdivision, that's often developed by a developer, such as, let's just use the Gagne, because He's close by and that's what they do. They have to build the road into the subdivision. They actually maintain it of development so that trucks going over the roads, et cetera, don't ruin the road before the township assumes it. They plow it, et cetera, hence the road maintenance agreement. And then when it's brought up to the standard that the engineer accepts, and they've made all this money off of all these properties and the development of it, then the municipality will assume it. And then it becomes a serviceable road for the taxes that are paid by those properties that are developed.
And that road use agreement will still be available,
Yes.
even though we pass this bylaw, because it sounds like what we're saying is, okay, from now on, nobody gets a road use agreement ever, of any way, shape or form. What we're saying is no more seasonal road use agreements on unopened roads.
Right.
As road agreements, but people can still travel those roads for agricultural purposes. They can still travel those roads to arrive at their property, and they can still snowmobile and four-wheel on those roads.
Exactly.
Okay, that's the end of my questions. Thank you.
I have a
Last
question. It sort of lines up with what it's gotten a little, a road use agreement or that terminology allows an individual, a landowner, to travel on the road for the purpose of bringing the road up to standard. And I think that's where we've gotten into trouble with in the past, is issuing these and there's no intention of bringing them up to standard. And I think if this resolution, does it solve that issue? Or we're not going to be coming back with a year from now, going through the same motions to deal with people traveling on Latimer's Lane, demanding access, and we're responsible. We're not responsible for, well, first of all, we have a liability. If they don't plow the road in the winter, we are responsible for any accident on it because we own it. Unless they have a $10 million liability insurance policy. Does it protect the municipality going forward?
if I may answer, Ann, and you correct me if I'm wrong, it does protect the municipality going forward for any new developments, but we're grandfathering in Latimer Lane and Stewart's Road because those
I
agreements.
understand that, yes.
Oh,
Yes, I understand that part. We're grandfather and we're not rescinding any existing agreements.
What we have to do
But
is
it
we
does-
have to work coming to a solution on those roads one way or another in the future. That's got to be part of our mandate moving forward. We've grandfathered them, so let's try to fix the situation on those two roads. But what passing this bylaw does says there's no other seasonal road agreements that will be made within the township. So we won't make the
Okay.
problem.
Okay, that's clear. It seemed like we went off on a number of detours and rabbit trails, at least in my thinking, the way I was listening. So yes, I'm totally in agreement, and I think we need to resolve the outstanding or existing issues, but protect the municipality and the taxpayers, all the taxpayers.
Thank you, Councilor Latimer. One last time around. Any last questions? Councilor Manson?
Yeah, I just want to make it clear, the distinction, because we decided to stop issuing road agreements and others road maintenance, road use. I'm seeing the two terminologies. Maybe that's where I'm stumbling, but we decided we're not issuing any. But now it's being suggested that there are road agreements to be issued. So how does that, we already said no, and we did a bylaw. So where is it where's that being undone? Is it in this bylaw? Is it allowing that access, or because we said we're not issuing it? So and without the road agreement, then you don't have any possibility of a building permit. So that's the question.
In the official plan, it does say that we will issue road use agreements to bring a road to standard. And it also says that in the zoning bylaw. So there still is the mechanism there to have roads brought up to a standard. And we're not saying like they're gonna concrete it or pave it, like it's not in our rural character to do that. However, we do have a bylaw in place that says that we'll give a road use agreement for the work on the road while they're doing the work on the road, for the purpose of that. And it still is, conforming with the official plan as well as the zoning bylaw.
How does that dovetail into the policy that we said we're not issuing it?
Because
I
we're
think
not
it was
issuing them
For seasonal
for
properties.
seasonal properties.
Okay, and was that distinction made within, when we built that particular bylaw? I don't have a recollection.
It is in there. The current bylaw does say that the road use agreements will be issued in order to bring the road up to standard to develop it. Whether it's one, two, and whoever would want a road use agreement. The purpose of that road use agreement in the existing bylaw does state that you would receive a road use agreement in order to bring the road up to standard. We have issued road use agreements for all kinds of other reasons, not conforming with the bylaw.
Thank you.
All right, that's last go around. I guess, Bill, you're the only one left with the second question. And if you don't have one, that's fine.
No, I don't.
All right. Then, the first motion on the floor was John's motion to defer the passing of the resolution to the next meeting. So I need a mover and a seconder to defer.
So Jonathan,
I'm moving, I guess.
Yes. And a seconder to defer. Without a seconder, we can't move forward on the motion to defer.
Understood.
All right, then, let me just get back to, sorry.
Should this be a recorded vote?
If you request it to be a recorded vote, it'll be a recorded vote. Are you
I think
requesting
it's
it?
important. I think it's important enough to do that.
So I read the resolution. And now therefore be resolved that the Council of the Municipality of Calvin will enact bylaw 2024-67, being a bylaw to amend bylaw 2022-19 to remove section 4.11.2.1 and the example on page 93. This is a recorded vote, so all those in favor?
no,
So we will call the names alphabetically. So Councillor Latimer,
I'm in favor.
okay, Councillor Manson,
Against.
okay, Councillor Morton,
4.
and last Mayor Gould.
In favor.
the motion is passed.
So the motion is passed. Thank you, everyone. Can we invite Councillor Grant to return? Absolutely. Councillor Grant, would you please return? Thank you. Next item on the agenda is agencies, boards, and committees. First one is the Mattawa Conservation Authority. There is a lengthy report in the agenda. Do you have anything to add?
I was away for the meeting, so the next meeting is in December. I'll be there for that.
Okay. Thank you. The next item is
Do you want to comment on that one? It's fairly important. It's the 2025 draft budget, and there's an increase again, so that's we with the public
6.1%.
about a little over 6% for the Township of Calvin on the draft budget coming from North Bay Mattawa Conservation Authority. This draft budget was created over time, and it's now before us for comment.
And that with a lot of opposition at the last meeting that I wasn't there for, and there's supposed to be an executive meeting, of which I'm on.
I have a question for you, Councillor Morton, for the board or for the Conservation Authority. Is it not possible for the Conservation Authority to find a 5% reduction in their costs rather than put out another levy on us? Is that being considered?
It's been considered. One of the problems they have is that the province is doing massive cutbacks in their budgeting and their ability to levy fees for service. So they're, it'd be like us saying, it's $500, but now the province is saying, no, you can only charge $200 now, but it costs us $300. But provinces, we don't charge 200.
So the province downloads it onto them and they download it onto us.
Exactly. It's just like, with normal government, welfare system. And they just ask the taxpayers to, and then as the council sits, or the board sits there and fights with the, management about this, justify that.
You too.
Well, you use the word ask. I don't think there's any asking involved here. It's a levy.
But the police board,
Anyways, that's my comment. That's my comment. I'll just pass it. That's it.
Councillor
I
Rat?
have a question, just for clarification on the, it's always an issue of a ski hill. And the expenses there.
If I might, Councillor Grant,
Yeah.
that's not included in the levy.
It's not
It's
included.
not included.
That's
They've
my
asked
question.
us and we've always declined.
Well, that's my question is if they've changed that position.
So they will ask in addition to the levy
Yes.
whether or not we would. So we will receive another request this year, I'm assuming, as we have the last
If
few
you
years, whether or not we wanted to contribute to.
Okay, just because it's,
Of the surrounding communities, we actually have something that the Conservation Authority has an impact on. It is the Eau Claire Gorge. Some of the other communities don't have a conservation area in their communities, and therefore their levies are a little bit smaller.
And some are higher. I did the math and East Ferris, as an example, is 7.8% higher. Chisholm, 7%. I don't know how the 5.8 was arrived at because all of my figures tell me that it's over 6% for every one of the municipalities here. Interesting note to your comment, there's no comparable in the budget. It doesn't give us comparisons to 2024, and that might have been helpful for everyone to see.
Yeah.
I did some comparisons based on the contract that I seen last year, and I was a little bit taken aback by some of where the budget went up. For example, if you look at page 12, just as an example, I was expecting to see staff wages and benefits, knowing that the unionized go up. That actually went down by almost $100,000. Staff mileage in comparison on page 12 went from 4,700 to 20,000. So there's no comparable. It would have been helpful, I think, for councils to see 2024 budget comparison to 2025, so that you could see where you would have to go line by line as I did to find the difference in where, what makes up legal services went from 30,000 to 75,000 as an example. Services in general went in, I'm looking at category 1, they went down 11,500. Rental expenses were 0 last year to 36,000 this year. So I think presenting a draft budget to councils with comparison might have been very helpful.
Helpful.
So that's going to be addressed at the next meeting. The new CAO, the temporary interim CAO is it's temporary and interim.
Yeah, she's new. She's just,
Come from Perry Sound, and I'm not saying she's not capable. I know she's fairly new, and this is coming into this position and some of the problems that she inherited, I'm sure is, I think Perry Sound has 2 people on staff, and North Bay has maybe 25.
Can I bring up another line item, maybe if you're going back,
Sure,
on your behalf? Staff appreciation and clothing, there was 0 there last year and it's 20,000 this year.
wow.
So I think a comparison budget before you comment might be a good idea.
Yeah, and I have two others to add. I mean, I think comparable's great, but, you know, when we look at, so if we look at the total budget amount of $4,235,860. And we look at VO operations, like it's in that budget. It's not parsed out. Like I understand in the
Yeah.
past, it's parsed out as a, but to me, it appears that it's in the budget. It's part of the,
So you raise a good point. If it is, we did, vote in council not to participate.
I just don't see that. I see it as in the budget here. I don't see it as, I see, like, that's what I
That's a
see.
definite question for Council
Yeah,
Morgan.
and I believe that the budget includes the levy and the ask.
Yes.
And whereas if you don't get the ask, then you're short that money.
So then if. Okay,
So if the levy is $12,000 and the ask is 800, which is about what it was last year,
yeah,
and we don't pay the 800, then they only get the 11 or 12,000. And that's what they have to deal with.
yeah, I understand the concept because this is the way it was in the, I just don't see that here. Like, it's not showing here. That's all in the paperwork.
And that could
It
be,
shows it as part of the overall
inexperience.
budget and then it just shows a percentage increase.
Yeah, and you're right, it is part of the overall budget. It's just not part of
The levy?
the levy.
Okay,
But you're right, it doesn't
it just
specify.
doesn't
how
look
much to-
clear,
Yeah.
but I do believe that could be the case, so maybe some clarification.
that should be clear. Like I said, there's 2 executive meetings coming up plus a council meeting. Or a
And
board
then
meeting.
the other question I have is on the legal expense. Comparables would be nice, but there's a significant increase in legal expense. Might I suggest that they divide that cost over time? If this is anticipated to be a short-term expense and not a long-term expense, it'd be nice not to levy it. Does that make sense what I'm saying? Like,
Yes.
like take it as a loan or so we can divide that over time. Because you still have to incur the expense. But if
if they don't-
next year, it's gonna be anticipated to be 20,000 due to some current issues. It's not, you know, you're
If
trying,
that's out next year, then the budget wouldn't go down. They
the
would.
budget wouldn't go down at all. Well, it could, likely not, likely
Likely
they
not.
build it in. So that was my point on the legal expense and any other expenses that might be, call them extraordinary expenses, let's say. Might be ideal not to build them into the levy in one shot.
Mhm. Good
By
advice.
comparison, it'd be like us putting in the legal expenses in our budget.
100%. That's what I was.
It's the same
That's the
thing.
same thing that
We
I'm
can't talk
suggesting.
about why those
Maybe
legal
the
expenses
executive
were there
committee-
in our budget, and I can't talk about why those legal expenses are in
Maybe
their
the
budget.
executive committee could consider that as a way to, you know,
Lower the levy.
lower the overall levy if there's extraordinary expenses. Would
I
you
think-
need a comparison to see that or prediction?
These are excellent questions.
Mm.
Thank you for bringing them forward. And I think, you know, this really, to the CEO's point, is something the public needs to be aware of. Because of course, you know, when there's a 5% or a 6% tax increase, everybody says, well, where are you spending the money? But if every agency that downloads from the government gives us a 6-7% tax increase, a levy increase, that money has to come from taxes.
And all indications so far from all of the boards and agencies indicate that we are receiving a minimum of 5% from each and every one of those.
Well, except one.
Except one.
Except on the planning board is staying.
But yes, the others, yeah, well, the smallest of expense would,
Was it the one?
We don't have that budget yet. though.
we don't have it
Yeah,
yet.
you don't have it.
You will have it shortly.
Yes.
I'll bring those concerns to the next, or certainly to the executive meeting.
Yeah, just Ski Hill, for me, it was just Ski Hill, an extraordinary. I'll
The
call
ski hill is a non-issue. Nobody that I've talked to supports them and their ask. There may be people that do of the 13 members, but the 4 out here don't. Because we have our own ski hill
To make sure it's not built in.
Right.
and it's, yes, I'm sure it's.
And I, to follow up with the CEO's comment.
Yeah.
Comparison budget would be.
Would be, yeah, and unfortunately, the CAO from last year was,
But they can do that
Earlier.
now. Usually when you present a
Yeah,
budget, you always present the comparison budget. no matter.
Like I said, I wasn't at that, I'm no excuse, I wasn't at the meeting and I didn't get that paperwork.
Okay.
So I'll talk to Rebecca tomorrow.
Excellent discussion. Thank you. Next, agency is the East Nipissing Planning Board. Councillor Grant and I were both at the meeting last night. Councillor Grant, what's the levy increase for this year?
0.
Oh, that's right, 0.
That's what we approved last night.
That's approved last
But
night.
that's very extremely rare and I would, I mean, I don't know, I'd like to, just give kudos to the board because you don't get that. Like, CEO Don had mentioned, we're looking at significant increases in every other board. So I think that's.
Can I ask a question about that? Does
Yeah.
that mean that the services that you receive at the planning board from organizations such as Telic Engineering are not expected to increase? Or then the costs in order to pay those expenses are not expected to increase?
They actually have, because of course, the expenses that the board has is every severance that's received. They charge a fee for that and then they are charged a fees by the North Bay Madawaska Conservation Authority to do an investigation, and those fees have gone up. But they haven't gone up enough that the board feels that it needs to raise the levy at this point in time. But there has been increases in the costs of doing the severances that we're doing.
And so I'm asking these questions because we don't have an agreement that tells us what the
Right.
role of the planning board is and how they operate and where the funds are placed. And so I don't have the answers to the questions that I have about why we pay without an agreement that tells us what the service provided by the planning board is.
And Councillor Grant and I have to re-emphasize that we need to see the planning board agreement as soon as possible. We have brought that up.
And I have also requested and was told that I should look at the
And
records of 1970s or so. And it's hard to find records for 2 years ago, let alone 1970s.
the planning board is interesting in that anybody who wants to in Calvin Township sever some properties has to go through the planning board. They have to make an application through the township and then it goes to the planning board for approval. The planning board then decides to send out, when the severance is in process, they send out a request to the Ministry of Transportation, the Ministry of Energy, Mines and Forests, and to the North Bay Madawaska Conservation Authority, looking for, comment on that severance application. And then they process the severance application. And we need, as to Councillor Manson's comment, that we need more residential development. We need to make it easier for the people in the township to understand that process. And I think that has to be one of the tasks that we have to force the planning board to do, which is to prepare documentation that's easier for customers, not customers, but residents to understand this process. Some people, like Councillor Grant, are just right up on top of how to do severances, but there's a lot of people who don't have a clue of where to start.
Yeah, there's a lot of what I call them perceived barriers. When people
Right.
just quit before they even begin, just because it's a bureaucratic, there's a lot involved. There's a lot involved for. Depends who you are. And that's, that shouldn't be that way. It should be quite clear and concise. And it is, but it's not communicated well.
It's not communicated well, 100%. And I think if we can get the planning board to communicate that process better, it'd be worth an increase in the levy to the planning board. Sorry to say, but anyway.
Just a quick comment on you corrected yourself. You said, referred to the residents as customers and corrected them to residents, but I think they're both, and organizations like that should treat them like customers and embrace them because that's what they are.
No, you're right. You're right. All right, moving on to the physicians recruitment. We had one meeting. We will have, I haven't seen the agenda from the minutes from that meeting yet. And our next meeting will be in February. That committee is going as planned and there really isn't any obstacles in the way. We just have to continue doing what's happening. And they are not looking for a levy increase from Calvin Township as well. We've already agreed to the levies right through 2026. And as I mentioned at the last meeting, by 2027, we may be disbanding that committee because it will have achieved its goals.
And that's a $2,500 annual that's been in place since the beginning of time, that particular board.
OPP Detachment Board, that has my name on it. I'm not on that board, but Councillor Grant is.
Oh, it's just Councillor Grant on my agenda, so.
Oh, okay.
It meets quarterly, so I don't have, I often don't have exciting updates on our meetings just because we haven't met, but, December 4th is the next meeting. I haven't heard, I just really haven't heard, there hasn't been any communication as to whether or not the other township or other municipalities have approved the budget. I'm just gonna wait for the agenda.
That's another big levy increase, correct?
That, well, yes, from the past, yeah, there's significant changes too, and we advocated for a change in what's the word I'm looking for, Richard, Mayor Gould, how we're assessed.
Oh, yes, the instead of being population based, we're,
The assessment formula.
yeah.
Yes, I don't know how that all went through yet, so we'll see when the next agenda comes up.
Just to remind everyone on council, what Councillor Grant's talking about is he pushed really hard to be population based rather than CVA, which is current value assessment based, which is a much more fair way to divide those costs, considering you're getting police services for the amount of people that you have in a township. It just makes more sense. It should be done that way.
Which is my belief, and
Yeah.
I think that's a good thing, so we'll see how, obviously everyone else approve it, and we'll see how it goes.
All right,
Want to mention that I did receive a call, just to let you know, yesterday from the OPP liaison, Tom Gervais, who presented to council, and he wanted to know if I knew who the chair and the board members were because he'd not heard anything at all. And so I sent him to the chairperson. Instead of giving him the information that I knew, I suggested, and he was happy to know who the chairperson is and wanted to know if we had all agreed to that community process, and told him that the truth was that no, we had not. But I wasn't, that was the police board's, need to respond, and I did refer him to the chairperson. I provided her information that I have, and that's her email address.
all right, thank you.
You currently have a secretary?
I believe we do not. Like I said, the last meeting, secretary resigned. And so that's really all I know is from the last meeting. I haven't received any communication. I was waiting for the next meeting agenda.
I
Yeah,
didn't know whether they announced it or not.
I'm not aware if they have, I haven't received any emails.
All right, thank you very much. Canadian Ecology Center. Thankfully, our CAO wrote to he's not the chairman, he's the
Executive director.
executive director, and was told that the next meeting, and I haven't been to a meeting yet, so the next meeting will be in February.
No, what the response was is that they typically meet 4 times a year, typically on a Friday. Most often starts at 8:30 a.m. and the meeting is called at the chairs, and that he thinks there may be a meeting in January.
In January, okay? I'll just have to hope that it's not on the third Friday of. So, that's it for, boards and agencies. So, I just need a mover and a mover and a seconder to accept the board and chair's report. Councillor Morton, Councillor Manson. And now therefore be it resolved, the Council for the Corporation Municipality of Calvin received and accepts the agency's board's committee report and or minutes provided by council members at these meetings. All in favor? And the next item on the agenda is a closed meeting, and we have none tonight. So then the confirmation bylaw mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Manson, Councillor Morton. Now therefore be it resolved that bylaw 2024-68 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council be approved. All in favor? And that is carried. And the next item on the agenda is an adjournment. It is. Can that be right?
It is.
Holy heavens, it's 7:31.
Good conversation.
7:31. Now there, I need a mover and a seconder to adjourn. Councillor Morton, Councillor Manson. Now therefore be it resolved that the council for the corporation municipality of Calvin now be adjourned at 7:31 PM. All in favor? Carried. Thank you very much. And that's it.
That was a lengthy,